I mean, if you really want to understand need in America right now, go on GoFundMe, because what you'll find is you will deep dive into a place where people can't afford to bury their parents. They can't afford to recover from a fire at their house. They can't pay for cancer treatments. They can't pay for their dog to be fed that month, buy dog food. Like, it is just a free-for-all of need.
That's Kyle Swenson. He covers social issues for The Post. And he has been working on a story about a young woman here in D.C. She used TikTok and GoFundMe to raise an incredible amount of money for an unhoused man.
But what the story really gets at is the kind of holes in our social safety net right now. And I think it shows a lot about the problems that arise when we turn to crowdfunding and social media to solve social problems that previously, the government would handle.
And as you're about to hear, these problems can have serious consequences, despite the best intentions. From the newsroom of The Washington Post, this is Post Reports. I'm Martine Powers. It's Saturday, March 23rd. And today, we are bringing you a bonus episode to share this fascinating story of Saai Graydon, Alonzo Hebron, and the perils of social media-driven philanthropy. This story starts out on TikTok, and maybe you are one of the millions of people who saw it as it unfolded. I am not on TikTok, so when I sat down with Kyle a couple of weeks ago, I knew nothing about this. So, Kyle Swenson, just lay the land for me. Like, what have you been working on?
So my colleague Amber Ferguson and I have been working on a story about this viral video situation that has really blown up on TikTok, but it's really exposed a lot of interesting things here in D.C. and nationally about charity, homelessness, who deserves the help that we give in this system, where the social safety net works and where it doesn't. And also, what responsibility do people have when they're trying to just do good for somebody that they meet on the street? The story starts in January. So Saai Graydon, she's a 21-year-old college student who is from California. She goes to the University of California at Berkeley, and she comes to D.C. for a college program.
Come move to D.C. with me for my last semester as a senior. I'm about to graduate, y'all. And I said, you know what? I want to be somewhere else besides Cali. So that's what we're doing. So originally, I was supposed to be here yesterday.
And this is January of this year?
January 2024, yes.
Okay.
So she moves to a city. She's thousands of miles away from her home. She's a very ambitious young woman. She wants to get into business or fashion. One of the things that she's done in a way to kind of build that personal brand is go on TikTok, and she's worked very meticulously building a TikTok following. So when she gets here, she has around 36,000 followers.
And what is she putting on TikTok? Like, what are these TikToks like?
Just random videos that you would see on any TikTok. They're, day in the life, her going to class, they're her outfits for the night.
Hey, TikTok fam. I got a quick fit check for y'all. I don't know. I'm looking at my feel like, am I missing something? I feel like something's missing, but when I put my hats on, I'm like, the hats don't go. I don't know, but y'all tell me. And then I got...
So this is like very typical, like, this is my outfit. What do you think about my outfit?
It's a weird world for me, but yes, this is
It's
young
also
people.
very Gen Z because she's got the wide leg pants.
Totally.
That's all the rage.
That I had on, but I felt like the hat, I didn't get pictures in the hat the other night. Like, I'm not going to put it all the way on my head because I don't want to mess my hair up.
That's a very silly hat. I wouldn't recommend the hat for her.
I can't judge, but yeah, I mean, I've seen the hat.
I don't know. What y'all think?
I mean, my honest reaction, if I'm being my worst self right now, is that, like, this is so boring.
Yeah, for sure. But 36,000 people disagree, and they've tuned in, which I guess it is a generational thing. But, I think that she did it very intentionally. It was something that she did with a career in mind, but also it was just the world that she grew up in and lived in. She thought this was normal. Mm-hmm. And also, she had moved to D.C. She was feeling really lonely. She talked about this in a lot of TikToks that she made. She had roommate drama. Her parents and friends were thousands of miles away in California and Texas. And she felt that just filming herself on TikTok was a way of feeling a little less lonely in a new environment, new city.
Yeah. So then what happens?
So one day, she's kind of having a bad day. She doesn't have anything in her dorm room refrigerator. She thinks, well, I'm going to go out and go to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. And as she's walking, she starts filming like she does in many situations. And just randomly, as she's walking down P Street in downtown D.C., a unhoused guy shouts out to her, not asking for money or anything else. He was just asking for green tea.
Huh?
Some tea.
Tea?
Tea. Some hot tea.
Some hot tea?
Yeah.
Damn.
I think if you watch the video, it's clear that the request is what stopped her short, like tea. You just want tea. She has this cart that she's gotten from her dorm. You can hear it clattering around.
I'm walking to Trader Joe's. You want to walk with me?
Trader Joe's?
Yeah.
All the way up?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can stop by Starbucks or something. Say hi to my TikTok. All right, so we about to go on CVS real quick.
Well, what I think is interesting is that, if you live in a city, if you live in D.C., if you live in an American city, probably you get people on street corners asking you for help every single day. And I think, if we're all being honest, we mostly walk past and ignore.
Sorry, I can't help.
Sorry at most, and just don't even acknowledge, mostly. And she acknowledged this man. His name was Alonzo, he told her. And not only invited him to go walk with her to the store, but as they're walking, they developed this relationship. She started calling him Unc because he reminded her of an uncle that she had. And he ends up telling her that he's unhoused, he has nowhere to sleep, he's sleeping on the street, and that he has recently been diagnosed with cancer. He needs this medication. He's trying to get it from CVS. It's all confusing.
You gotta go because he said he's in pain.
So they're just going to walk through the aisles of CVS together.
He just got insurance yesterday, but it takes 45 days for his insurance to be active. So I told him, I'm just going to pay for it.
Okay, so she's at CVS with him, and it looks like she's helping him get his meds and also just paying for his meds.
So we have Starbucks now.
Now they're going to Starbucks.
What size do you want? Do you want like a small one? Okay. Can I get a grande green tea, please? Okay. Here's your green tea.
Okay, so it looks like he got the tea that he asked for. But now they're going back to CVS.
So the CVS we were just at only had one of the medications, but the one he really needs, they don't have it. And he's in pain. He literally cannot walk with me. So I told him, stay here. I'm going to walk to the other CVS, and I'm going to see if they got it. Guys, I'm so happy they had his medicine.
Okay, so it seems like they have now successfully gotten the second medication, but she is also concerned about where he's going to be ending up that night.
He's talking about he's going to go to a church. I said, no, I'm going to get you a hotel room.
A hotel room?
All these cars looking like, what the hell do they got going on?
Also, it's like nighttime now.
All right, yo. After an hour, we got Uncle room. Okay, here go your room. Oh, period. Period. Look at Unc, I done got you a room and everything. This is your keys, Unc. I want you to enjoy yourself. Check out 11 o'clock. Here, give you some money. Okay. You got my number, right? You gonna be good?
Yes.
So,
I love you.
I love you too, Unc. Y'all, TikTok, we spent how many hours together, Unc?
We spend them.
We spend them. I haven't eaten all day. I'm hungry. I gotta go back to school. What kind of cancer you got?
Prostate. Come on.
Prostate?
Prostate.
Okay. So I got cancer, y'all. I wanted to help him. So I'm gonna see if I can raise y'all TikTok. We need to raise money for Unc, y'all. We need to help Unc out. Seriously. Well, say bye to my TikTok, Unc.
I love you.
Love you.
Wow. That was not what I was expecting from that video. I mean, that turned into a whole
It was
saga.
hours and hours of... He had said that he was going to sleep at a church. She said, I'll get you a hotel room. So she did all this out of the kindness of her heart. And what happens next is that she posts a GoFundMe that night. So she still hasn't eaten. It's the same day. Posts a GoFundMe, and she watches and can't sleep, literally trying to fall asleep. She watches her phone pinging as her TikTok followers go up and as people keep giving more and more money to this So it goes really viral very quickly on TikTok. And by the morning, people have donated $100,000
Wow.
to this.
Overnight?
Overnight.
That's a lot.
So she can't even sleep. She's just excited watching this all happen, right? And excited to tell him. And, eventually that GoFundMe account would climb to $400,000
Whoa.
from people across the world.
Whoa. Oh my God. I mean, she must have been thrilled.
I asked her how she felt that morning, knowing that she had raised all this money, and she was ecstatic.
I was astonished.
Yeah.
I just couldn't really grasp and really process it.
Yeah.
It was just too much going on at once. People are blowing my phone up. People are donating. And then I remember at first, when people first started donating, I was getting little emails.
Every time.
Every time. GoFundMe. Such and such donated. Such and such donated. And then I think at that point, like that 5-6 hours, GoFundMe said, you're done getting emails. You're getting too much support. You're getting way too much support. And I said, whoa.
Wow. She just sounds so excited.
And that day, she goes and tries to find him at the hotel which she had got him for the night, and he's gone. He'd already checked out.
So he checked out at 9:30? Yeah. Did he say where he was? Did he have his bag with him?
Yes.
Okay. He didn't say anything about where he's going?
He didn't say it, no.
And had she been expecting that? I mean, had he checked out because they were like, you only paid for one night and you need to leave, or?
Well, the checkout time was like 11 o'clock, like any hotel. She got there at like 6 a.m., buzzing with adrenaline. She wanted to tell him. She was excited. She gets there as soon as like dawn's cracked, and she doesn't find him. He's left.
He's already gone.
And so
I'm literally just about to walk the whole path that me and him walked yesterday. I know like what area he kind of be at, so I'm about to just walk around and see if I can find him.
she rents a car. She's driving around in the car trying to find him. She rents a car trying to find him, going to street corners. She's looking.
I'm stressed the out because why did I miss it by 30 minutes? I just left this church. They gave me a whole list of shelters and stuff he may be at.
He had her phone number. She was getting a lot of calls at this point from family and friends, but also she was getting a lot of calls from just like strangers who found her number and saw the GoFundMe and thought that she had all this money suddenly to give away. She was getting like hit up with DMs about like, can you help me with this, like that.
Yeah.
So literally she's getting the entire like world of social media pressing on her. She can't find this guy. She's stressed. And she's ignoring calls that are coming in. And eventually she sees that one call was local, and it turns out that it had been Alonzo.
Okay.
That he had been calling her from a church.
Oh,
and
wow.
so she went and found him. But then she finds this guy and has to be like, can I talk to you privately for a minute? Your life is going to change, basically, because hundreds of thousands of dollars are being raised in your name.
Wow. What was that moment like when she delivered that news to him?
So she had TikToked it.
And then I made a GoFundMe for you.
You did?
Yes. And I asked people, I said, donate anything that's welcome. Everything will be given to you because I really want to help you.
I know you do.
And I think the last time I checked, they had raised over $150,000.
Shocking thing, ain't it? I feel damn good. I ain't gonna lie.
What you gonna tell TikTok?
Hey, TikTok, you see me? I'm doing good. I'm grateful. She found me again. I feel real good, you know?
He seemed he was absorbing it, right? Like, that's big news. And also, you don't know, is it real? Am I really going to get the money?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Yeah, I can imagine just like feeling confused.
But
And
by
like
this
maybe not sure how much to trust, like this sort of magical idea of this $500,000 that all of a sudden has fallen into your lap.
But so Sanai's dealing with this, telling this man, like, there's this situation, we have all this money now raised for you. But then TikTok and social media are really clamoring around her, and they're saying, what's happened with Unc? What's the development? And so she's kind of feeling very squeezed and overwhelmed. And that's about the point when Amber and I sat down and talked to her. And she was still very euphoric, very positive, still hadn't slept much, still hadn't gotten groceries, but she was very positive about the situation. and realized that this was a moment of like doing good. Like she had an opportunity to do something significant to change this man's life.
So what was Sanai's plan? Like, what was she going to do with all this money?
Well, honestly, she really didn't have a plan because she didn't expect this to happen. And again, it's happening so quickly. You know, within a few days, you're talking about $400,000 given to this man. And she hadn't done like this. She's not a professional social worker. She's not a homeless advocate. She had limited experience in this way, in this realm. So what does she do? She had done this. This was her responsibility to get this man this money that people had given from all around the world, strangers, right? Mm-hmm. And she was also really conscious of that. It was a responsibility on her part to be transparent about how it was going, like how she would spend the money. And she kind of like, she would get on TikTok and ask people like which banks would be best to get Alonzo a bank account. Which should she set up a trust? You know, what would be the best way to do this? She would kind of crowdsource this. And she kept saying, like, this is a family, people who had donated, you know, you're all involved in this decision. But before she could even begin to kind of map out her next moves, a few days later in early February, a local TV news segment comes out. That's when things began to get crazy.
It is a TikTok video of a college student in D.C. helping out a homeless man who went viral, and a GoFundMe campaign raised more than $400,000 to help him.
But tonight, questions are being raised about the man's alleged criminal history.
The man in that viral TikTok video goes by Alonzo. Tonight, I exclusively spoke with a woman who says here in D.C. years ago when she was homeless, he beat her up, and now she's only sharing the harrowing details with Fox 5.
So this video announces his full name. He's identified, Alonzo Hebron. And not only had been involved in this 2020 assault, which was caught on camera and is very vicious to watch, he had a very long criminal history, everything from drug possession charges to robbery to other assaults. You know, the woman survived the attack. Alonzo pled guilty to the charges related to it and served jail time for it. Now, I mean, I think this is important to say. So, like, I cover homelessness, so I'm in this world a lot. And I think if you talk to outreach workers, people who work with the homeless every day, you wouldn't be surprised that a person who is chronically homeless, can't find a place, has had a criminal record or been in and out of incarceration for a lot of reasons. You know, the street's a violent place. It's lonely, drugs are available, it's hard. You have more interactions with police, which means you're probably having more charges on you. Mm-hmm. So it's not surprising to me or anybody who deals with folks in that situation that you would have a criminal record, even though this one was also marked with real violent incidents. Mm-hmm. But if your only experience with homelessness is through Sanai's TikTok, if that's the only touch you have on the situation, then it's a shock. And immediately, it became this huge backlash online about whether Alonzo deserved to get this huge life-changing opportunity for a man like him with a violent history like that, whether Sanai knew about it, whether this was all a scam. Like, things just blew up, and it turned really ugly against her very quickly, against her and Alonzo.
After the break, we'll hear how Sanai reacts to this and what happens next. We'll be right back. Can I ask, what was the moment when she learned about this reporting or the truth about Alonzo's past? I mean, what was it like for her to hear that news that actually, this is a person with a much more complicated, troubled background than she'd realized?
So we had been talking to Sanai before this local TV station news broke, and afterwards she completely shut down. She stopped talking to us. She completely went dark on social media. She stopped posting. It was very clear that she was digesting this news as well. And later she addressed it. About a week later, she came back to TikTok and said that she learned that news with everybody else on the evening news.
So I am definitely aware of, the news that have been circulating, and I felt the need to address this because first and foremost, the same time you guys found out about it is the same time I found out about it.
She says, that's not the man I know. I like to finish things I started. I'm going to help him still. I'm still going to see this out. So she committed to the cause still.
I understand that life happens. We all have a story. We all have a background. It's just a part of the game. We were all placed on this earth and no one was given a blueprint. We still figuring it out each and every day. I understand the importance of second chances.
I think it's important to point out here that Saai at this point encouraged people who had donated but who were maybe having second thoughts or who felt the whole process was going too slow. She recommended that they reach out to GoFundMe to get their money back. At this point, the funds hadn't been dispersed, and she was still working with GoFundMe, she said, at this time to try to get the funds to Alonzo.
If you did donate it, of course, thank you so much. But if you feel as though it's taking too long or it's just not going the way I had initially promised, please request your refund. I'm not stopping y'all. Y'all still been requesting refunds as y'all should because this is taking too long.
I both so admire her commitment to this and the way in which she's operated out of a position of hopefulness and generosity and enthusiasm for all this. And I feel like the story so far has confirmed my most jaded self, which is that life is a lot more complicated than it might seem when you're in your early 20s, and that acts of hopeful selflessness and generosity sometimes blow up in your face. I don't know.
Totally. I felt the exact same way, especially covering this world. I was both amazed by her generosity. I think that's the great word, and the kindness that she showed. Mm-hmm. But also, it was tinged totally with naivete. It's kind of she didn't know what she was getting into.
Yeah.
She's not a professional. She didn't know this man's history, his problems. But still, she did a real remarkable kindness for this man, which this has set me on this whole thing of thinking about and talking to people about this idea of charity and kindness and what we should give and who deserves that kind of generosity and those second chances. Well, who really gets those second chances? And it's really kind of fascinating because it says so much about our society where we're at now in terms of a government social safety net and the help that's available for people and the ways that historically we only give help to people who we think, quote unquote, deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what does deserve mean?
What is that? And also so your conditions of who deserves something, mm-hmm. What does that mean? What are those conditions? What's your idea of a good person who's meaningfully deserves something, right?
Yeah, is a good person a person who has not committed a crime? Is a good person
right.
a person who has not committed a violent crime?
Right.
And
so if he had just had drug offenses and it wasn't a violent crime he had done, would we say, oh, it's okay? If it was he had done a violent crime but it was against a man and not a woman, a lot of people brought that up online that he had been violent with a woman. Is that a difference?
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that historically, charity has always been attached to conditions, right? If you think about people on street corners in the 19th century London, I don't know, the Dickensian charity idea, right? People asking for alms for the poor. Mm. Those are usually attached to conditions, which were religious organizations. And it was not people of color or not immigrants. It was these people that these particular religions deemed good. If you're a Catholic, no, don't apply. If you're Protestant, good, we'll give you the money. Mm-hmm. If you have a family, if you're a single mother, no way. Mm-hmm. If you have a child out of wedlock, get out of here. That there's all these conditions historically around charity. But the entire idea of a modern social welfare state is that help shouldn't be conditioned. If you need help, there shouldn't be boxes you have to check. You should just be able to get that help from the government. It's a mechanism. It's not a judging mechanism.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the government, and this is a bunch of people on TikTok who gave over
True,
their
but
money.
here's the key, though, is we have that idea, right? That's the ideals behind food stamps. That's the ideals behind rent relief. That's the ideals behind all of these social programs that are very important to America and a lot of people rely on. Disability insurance. Point being is that politically in this country, we have, in the last 30 or 40 years, cut down and put more and more conditions on who can access help from the government. And that's why more and more people, when they need help, end up on GoFundMe, which is just a free-for-all of whether or not people have the whim to help you or not.
So how unusual is it for GoFundMe to be dealing with these kinds of tricky or complicated situations?
So GoFundMe went live in 2010, and since then the platform has raised more than $30 billion from 150 million donors. That's from the company's own statistics. But giving on the site has also increased. This is something people are turning to more and more. About half the $30 billion had come and been donated since the beginning of the pandemic. But it's important to point out that the people who are giving to these causes, whether we're talking about homelessness or addiction or housing help, they're not typically trained professionals or experts in that particular field. And so they might not be fluent in the issues and complexities and problems that can come up. You know, for Alonzo's case, for example, he didn't have an ID and he didn't have a bank account. So it's like, how do you get money to an unhoused person? So you need a professional who deals with that. But a situation like GoFundMe, you're just relying on people's good nature and goodwill and people who aren't professionals. Saai is not, she's not a professional fundraiser. She's not a professional homeless outreach worker, which she acknowledges. But suddenly she's stuck in this position.
Yeah, and like despite her good impulses, is she actually capable of providing like the support system to this person that would help them be able to manage this money going forward or like finally be permanently housed or, you know, like is she capable of doing all the thing other than just like handing over a check, like doing the things that you'd really need to do to be able to help him in the long term?
I mean, almost handing over a check, wouldn't that be easy? I mean, I thought about this all the time. What would I do? I mean, what would you do in this situation? Would I, if I'm 21, college student, you know, life's ahead, would I dedicate so much time to this? I don't know. So I give her a lot of credit that she did. So it happened, right? And now all of a sudden things are screwed. Like, you know, now she's getting all this hate online. Now GoFundMe is being difficult to work with because they're like, well, how do we prove that he's an actual person?
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So all this money is sitting with GoFundMe, and she's trying to get it out so that she can get it to Alonzo so that she can help him. Like, tell me about the complications around getting that money like out of the hands of GoFundMe.
Right. So GoFundMe, which we have gone back and forth with the company, so they are very dedicated, not specifically talking about the situation or any situation specifically, but they, you know, in their terms of service, they talk about how a large sum like this, they'll reach out, they'll work with the people to get IDs. They've said many times that they have dealt with situations with unhoused people who don't have identification. They can walk you through. What's played out, though, over the weeks, according to Saai, is that they haven't been helpful.
Every time I get up, I love to just get positive energy, but I'm really frustrated, y'all.
She feels that she's been asked to do more and more and more.
I feel like everything I'm doing is right, and for some reason, it keeps getting stopped. Like, for some reason, I can't make any progress, and it's irritating.
She feels like they've kind of blocked her in terms of getting access to the money, and she's gone public with that and made allegations that maybe this is only happening because she's a young black woman and he's a black man with a criminal record.
I feel as though I'm being targeted because I'm African-American and he's African-American as well. And his criminal history, whatever. I definitely feel like that's why they're doing this.
And she's gotten an attorney involved. So it's gotten to a stalemate that's getting like litigious and stickier and stickier.
Wow. And how has GoFundMe responded to this allegation from Saai and her lawyers that this is about her race and about Alonzo's race and criminal history?
GoFundMe has been very specific that any allegations that they're being treated differently based on race or background is completely unfounded and false. And what they've told us is their top priority is still to get Alonzo the money and that they're working with Saai to try to make that happen.
Have you talked to Alonzo at all about all this?
No. So we've never talked to Alonzo, and he's been incredibly tough to find. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I know where he was previously hanging out, and I spent days and days and days with other unhoused folks who knew him and knew what was going on with him with this, knew about who he was, everything, in a certain part of D.C. So I spent a lot of time with those folks, but Alonzo hasn't been back there. And I think there's a good reason for that, is that I think a lot of people on the street probably think he has $400,000 in his pocket and he's just walking around with it, which really puts a target on your head if you're in, like we said before, this very volatile community of unhoused people.
Yeah, that it's not only the money, it's the attention around the money, even if he doesn't have the money, but that, as you say, that attention could be a real liability for him.
Everyone would be asking him for something, right? Because they think he has all this money suddenly. So I think he's laid low, although people have then, because of the social media aspect, people have seen him on the street and they've like taken videos and like, you're Unc, right? And you can see he's very uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because I think he probably is uncomfortable with the whole situation. But we couldn't find him. And as I mentioned, Saai had shut us out, but referred all of our questions eventually to her attorney, who we've been speaking with about their latest steps. But her time in D.C. is ending. She's leaving. Her internship's over at the end of the month. So that's almost put a clock on her, like finishing this whole situation, getting him the money, which her attorney expressed like she still is dedicated to doing somehow.
So it sounds like that is the state of where things stand right now. But I'm curious if you have any sense of how Saai feels about the complexity that she has now been completely wrapped up in.
Well, Saai stopped talking to us, but she's been very public on TikTok. She's kept everybody informed. And what I think is really admirable about her is she's very much dedicated to keeping people appraised of the situation. She knows people have given money, have invested in this, both emotionally and financially. So she wants to be transparent. She wants to keep people up to date. I think now she's just slamming against the reality of like, it's not as simple as she thought it would be, which from the outside, I think a lot of us would have said, of course, it's not going to be that simple. But she did have that youthful enthusiasm where she thought this was going to be great. She thought she'd start a nonprofit. She thought this could be a step towards a bigger thing that she could help. She had that enthusiasm of youth, and it just really smacked against the reality of the situation.
But I think you could also look at this, again, pretty cynically and say, well, yeah, she had that enthusiasm and she was so excited about helping him, but also she clearly wanted it blasted out to the world. And obviously putting it on TikTok, and I think this, speaks writ large to all of the benefits and potential drawbacks of our dependence on social media. But the reason that she was able to get this money is because she put it out on TikTok for the world to see. But also I think it speaks to what I bet a lot of people view as a performative aspect of this, of I want to say that I was able to help this guy and raise this money and change his life and makes me look good, and I can go on start a nonprofit or what have you. But that there are plenty of organizations that deal with homelessness that have professionals who work on this issue, and you could donate that money to them with the hopes that it would, maybe be in better, more capable hands than in this, early 20s person who clearly doesn't really know how to deal with a complicated situation.
I think that's totally fair. And I was in the same mindset going into this, right? Oh, these young folks with their social medias, putting everything online, and now you're getting into a social issue that's serious lives involved.
Yeah, and it makes you question their motivation, right?
But also, though, does that matter does the means matter with the end? This man does have this opportunity, an incredible opportunity to get help. So she accomplished that. Does it matter how it was accomplished? And that's what I was getting back to about the social safety net and this idea, at least of our just society, quote unquote, in terms of giving. We should give and help without worrying about how all the bells and whistles around it, right? If someone gets helped, that's a good for us, I think. But I totally agree with you that there's this performative element to it that's really different. And to be honest, like GoFundMe itself, like the act of giving on GoFundMe is arguably like performative. It's like, oh, I gave money to a dog shelter. Or I gave money to, a battered women's shelter. It's like, it's about you, the giver, showing off that you've given, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a performative element to that. But does that matter if those causes get that resource that you've given? I don't know. That's tough. Mm-hmm. That's the tough one, I think.
And also, I mean, when it comes to the performance of some of these things, it does feel like that is part of the game of GoFundMe on the side of like the people who are trying to seek out help, right? That you have to like kind of bare your soul to the world or, talk very openly about the stuff that you're struggling with and dealing with. And I mean, in some ways that makes sense because you are persuading people to give you money and they need to be persuaded. But I don't know, there's just something like uncomfortable about this expectation that to deserve help, one must like publicly perform the pain that you're going through.
That's a great point because you do have to open up about the most hurtful, private things that can be imaginable. You can't pay your family's food bill this month. You can't afford rent. Your children are going to be without shelter. You can't pay for your beloved dog to get a surgery. I mean, it is the most personal of things. And the whole process of GoFundMe is that you have to sell yourself, really. Mm-hmm. And so do you have enough pictures? Do you have the right pictures? Are they cute family photos? I mean, you see this play out all the time. You have to sell your story in a way and package it like the greatest difficulties that you're going through for the public, for strangers to be like, oh, that moved me, I'll give to that, which is it goes against every instinct of privacy, right? You should be able to access help without it being publicized. And also you have to having to sell yourself and put pictures up and do updates. This is important to emphasize for me. Like, this is the most hard thing for people to talk about is when they can't go on or they can't afford things. And it's like actually the biggest part of my job is trying to like cross that with empathy is like, how do you get people to talk about like what they feel is like a shameful failing of them as a provider, as a mother, as a father, et cetera. But the way that GoFundMe works, you have to song and dance it to get people to click on it,
Yeah. Kyle, thank you so much for sharing this story with all of its many complexities.
Thank you for having me on.
Kyle Swenson covers social issues for The Post. He co-reported this story with Amber Ferguson. That's it for this Saturday episode of Post Reports. Thanks for listening. Today's show was produced by Rennie Sprinovsky. It was mixed and edited by Ted Muldoon. And that tape you heard of the newscast came from Fox 5 in D.C. Tomorrow, on Sunday, we're also going to have a bonus in our feed. It's the first episode of the Post's new opinions podcast, Impromptu. You will definitely want to listen to that. Until then, I'm Martine Powers. Enjoy your weekend, and we will be back with more stories from the Washington Post.